Right.
It's a big
So-
change, just I think.
Straight up, impetuous. Not impetuous. Vanguard.
Yeah.
Vanguard's the one I love.
So
Yeah.
anything new is in blue. Anything last patch is in green. Anything in neither is older than that. Yeah, Dan, what's Vanguard?
So Vanguard is basically you always get to directly deploy, which is a really simple rule.
Mm.
But some of the ships that have got it were kind of a little bit adrift and didn't have a niche or a purpose. And suddenly with this, it's breathed a whole new lease of life into them.
Definitely. Yeah, adds a whole like fast ship role more, right? Which is really cool to see.
Especially as it's Vanguard X inches, and in addition to directly deploying regards to the scenario, so even if it's distant, you can directly deploy. You can, when you deploy, set up X inches away from your deployment zone. So if you're Vanguard 6, you can start 6 inches further forward, or whatever direction you want, I suppose. The rule itself is really interesting. As you said, there are a couple of ships that didn't really have a purpose, and now, well, they are your Vanguard. They are there first. They are at your front line, potentially coming in 1 or even 2 turns early. Particularly as, we'll get to it more when we get to the individual fleets, but one of the main things that's picked up Vanguard, I think, across the board, are battlecruisers. Now, battlecruisers previously, I know, Dan, you were very lukewarm battlecruisers, weren't you? Because they were the worst of the heavy ships with all the downsides.
Yeah,
and not many
they were
upsides.
eating into your heavy allowance without giving you as much as a battleship for, 10, 15% more points. You'd get so much more firepower, so much more resilience. What's a battlecruiser giving you? Well, now the battlecruiser is giving you potentially 2 more turns
Yeah.
of being there and doing stuff, which is 30%, 33% more game.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
No, 50% more game.
Yeah, because you're there for turns 1 through 6 rather than turns 3 through 6. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's particularly on distant deployment. I'm not going to give any spoilers. I'm not sure when the game will be going up, but I have played a game with these new rules. I was playing UCM, and I had a Johannesburg that's previously a ship that most people have kind of gone, whatever. It's kind of a heavy cruiser with a bit more teeth, but it's a heavy, so it's irritating. It was distant deployment, and it's got, I think, Vanguard 4. And it was a bully, because it was, for 2 turns, it was punching above its weight. My opponent's battleships turned up eventually, but by that point, the Johannesburg was already in their lines, just punching down, beating up light ships that couldn't really fight back very effectively. Huge difference. So much more usable. Yeah, really, it's an interesting rule. It's an interesting lever they can pull. And the ships that have picked it up, I think, are going to... Their stock will rise quite rapidly. It also potentially means you don't have to write a fleet specifically for distant play.
Yeah, you could build a more balanced fleet with it, right?
Yeah, if a couple of ships happen to have Vanguards, you don't have to go, oh, well, it's distant, I can't use this fleet. So yeah, we've got 2 other new rules. Let's pick one and tell us about it.
I'm going to go with reinforced armor because it seems smaller. And I feel that's going to be mainly resistance. I'm going to read it quickly.
All right.
It seems like if you score a critical hit against the lock value is high, right? Is that
Other way
right?
around.
Yeah, it makes it harder to land critical hits on a ship with reinforced armor.
Yeah, which sounds like a full resistance. I haven't seen that in Shatari at all.
Yeah,
they
don't get armor.
No,
they don't believe it.
Shields.
I'd seen it applied to the UCM Dreadnoughts.
Okay.
Which is nice because previously they weren't that much tankier than a battleship. For a significantly physically larger model, plus points. You need to beat your lock by 3 to score a crit. So if you are lock 3, you now score a crit against this on a 6. If you're lock 4, you can't crit it. Which will have a
Given that a lot of the big ship killers rely on things like penetrator.
Yeah.
Or
burn through.
Or even criticals, right? Any criticals won't go off.
Critical 1 weapons will bounce off or be that little bit harder to hit with. Yeah, it's been applied sparingly. It's not been applied for every battleship or anything like that. I think Resistance have picked it up, and in fact, Resistance, I think, have picked it up as an upgrade for some of their ships.
That's cool. I like that.
Bolt-on reinforced armor. Now, their saves are not normally great, or certainly their kinetic saves aren't great, but they're just that little bit harder to punch a
Mm.
hole in, which is cool. And then the last completely new special rule, I'll cover this one, is impetuous. This has again been applied quite sparingly. Paraphrasing what the wording is if when you activate a ship, activate a group, if you haven't activated anything that doesn't have impetuous this round, that group is +1 lock. So they're impetuous, they want to go first, they're chomping at the bit to get in and get involved. I think a couple of Scourge ships have picked it up, top of their heads.
I think so. I don't think it. I suppose it does. If you do a last first activation with them, it means that the first activation the following turn just gets a little bit of extra teeth.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the most impactful new rule, but again, it's another lever they can pull. What it is flavour, which is nice to see. I know that one of the critiques I've seen some people have for Dropfleet 2 is that in the transition from 1 to 2, some of the flavour was lost for some of the fleets. Some of the ships across different factions felt a bit samey. This is now another thing you can add on to various ships to make that a little bit more interesting. And again, Scourge
Yes,
one
I thought you
fits
started.
best. Yeah, like I can't imagine ever seeing Impetuous on UCM, for example. But that's fine. That's now a cool little thing you can give to the more aggressive, psychotic aliens. I think one of the famous commanders for Scourge, when he's at half health, he gains Impetuous as he gets angrier, which is funny. Cool. So those are our 3 completely new rules. Reeve, how has Reeve changed? Add following special rule.
I don't think it has.
Oh no, it hasn't. Of course, it hasn't. No,
Green's
it's
the
not
same.
blue. It's green.
Yeah.
We talked about this. So we can move on straight on to the errata. That first thing there about weapons is basically just a clarification. Some rules will now refer to a weapon system. It's just basically that row of weapons across the whole group. So if I've got I've got a group of 2 Rios, and their weapons are their UF6400s and their UF other mass drivers. The UF6400 is a weapon system. If I have a thing that makes it so pick a weapon system, it does better. It'll apply it to all of that row of weapons across the whole group. If they had 2 of them each, it would only impact 1 weapon per ship, because there'd be 2 separate rows.
Yeah, there's been a whole bunch of these things today. It's quite nice, tightening up the terminology and defining things.
Yeah, exactly. Another one there.
I mean, similar kind of thing with the arcs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not changing anything really. It's just clarifying that you're in one arc or the other. You're never in both.
Yeah.
Which is
Let's get on to the next page.
Let's get the
exciting stuff.
Okay. Should we talk about initiative? This is a potentially significant change. I hate it as the guy with Command Ship 2 every game.
I think that again, it's a simple change. It doesn't massively change things. What it does is reframe stuff for list building. It gives you more options. It makes not maxing out your admiral value a much more valid choice.
Yeah, exactly. The change, pretty simply, is that when you roll initiative, rather than adding your command value, if one of you has a higher command value than the other, you add 1. So it's still significant. +1 to initiative is not bad, but it will never be more than that. If I've got my level 3 commander in my level 2 command ship and Lost Sport a level 2 commander, I don't just auto-win every initiative, basically.
Yeah.
Plus, for good measure, you explicitly cannot spend rerolls on it. So nice, simple, straightforward, and as you said, it just makes other list building options it opens up list building options.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Weapons free. This is a big one.
Oh yeah. Again, this is one of those things where it's quite simple, but the value of certain ships goes up or goes down, and yeah. So this, I think, is how things were back in version 1. It means on weapons free, you cannot turn.
Yeah.
You may launch, but you cannot turn.
Exactly. That was how version 1 worked, and it's as you said, it makes a bunch of ships that were previously terrible suddenly a lot more interesting. It was always horrible with the Washington, where I've got, I think, 6 guns, but I'm also launched 6. So it was never full efficiency. That's now a lot more interesting.
Scourge have got a lot of their heavy ships have got a bunch of launch and a bunch of guns.
Yeah.
and they always struggled because they were kind of confused platypus.
Exactly.
Suddenly they're not. Suddenly they're pointed into the middle of the enemy ship, blaze away with everything, and then bomb what's left.
Exactly. But you said point at the enemy ship. The no turns is interesting as well, because a lot of big, powerful, heavy battleships have got massive, awesome front narrow weapons.
Yeah.
Well, you can't turn anymore. You got to point that at the target the previous turn. Obviously, telegraphing what you're going to do. You're committing to where it's going to go. Yeah, it's huge. Again, I've played a couple of games with this coming out soon, and it felt so much more tactical with these big, heavy battleships. Again, telegraphing what they're going to do. There'd be moments where I go, well, I'm going to have to fly through this debris field or point myself through the debris field to actually even have a chance of getting a target in arc. I can take it because I'm a battleship, but yeah, nice change. I'm sure it'll make a lot of version 1 veterans very happy. It means that Weapons Free is not always the correct order, which is nice.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that hurts biofighters who probably didn't need it a bit with the scythes, where you get the fusillade benefit for going weapons free with the front narrow weapon,
Yeah.
and they've got them in spades. But they've also got the longer scan range, and as you get that much further out, suddenly your 22.5-degree arc
Covers a lot more.
Covers a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
they'll have to be played a bit differently, won't they? More room for skill expression, maybe? Because, again, if you can set up your arcs turn before, then you'll benefit from it. If you don't think about it, you end up with nothing to shoot. Or, more accurately, you don't go weapons free and have reduced firepower.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to hit some ships more than others.
Yep. And then I think the other three are more the kind of tidying up and simplifying and housekeeping things.
Yeah.
It makes things like critical fire better because you get to burn them and then they can put the fires out.
Yeah, it'll always go off. One big one there, defenses offline is now -1 to all your saves rather than no kinetic or energy or shield saves.
I love that. It's great.
Yeah.
Best change.
Um,
to my shields more.
I mean, it'll reduce your shields by 1.
I can take that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I like that. It makes it a less of a binary. Your ship is utterly dead or carrying on fine.
Yeah, it helps balance status out, I think, as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then explosions. You don't have to remember a set of things to determine whether things blow up. They just blow up now.
Yeah. Which is violent.
I like.
Yeah. It's going to make brawling at close range risky. Right. What else we got? So launch assets. I don't think that's that big a deal. Oh, that is a big deal, actually. From now, placing launch assets counts as them moving from the carrier to their location. What this means is you can't place assets the other side of terrain and not set the penalties. You can't sit on one side of a ring and put your fighters the other side of the ring. Or sit one side of the debris field and drop your troops the other side of the debris field. Which is interesting. I think people generally thought that's how it was supposed to work, but it's not what it said. So makes sense. It's just a tidy up of how boarding pods work there. Fighters.
Oh, that's a bigger change. I think I'd internalised this from the Scourge perspective, where kinetic save rerolls were something that happened to other people.
Yeah. Now, fighters only grant their rerolls versus all close action weapons regardless of damage type and bombers regardless of damage type. They do nothing to any other weapon type. This makes sense, I think. It was always a little weird that I could have a fighter pilot intercept a mass drive around with his face, I assume. I don't think he's shooting it down. This makes more sense thematically. It's going to hurt a couple of fleets. UCM may now fail kinetic saves, which is a novelty. And Resistance, I think, relied quite heavily on their fighters to make up for their poor kinetic saves. Now that's not an option. They just have to take their base kinetics and deal with it. Just fair enough. What have we got for bombers? Not sure what's actually been changed there. It's just tidying up of wording. Saturation fire is now just the term for when you have more than 6 bombers and reduce target saves. So now it's
Yeah.
just a separate rule again, tidying up. Scenery, this is basically just reiterating that when assets fly through or are placed through scenery, they're affected by the scenery, just putting in 2 places rather than 1 so it's clear.
You no longer have to balance your ships with the bases half off the table edge.
Yeah,
Best
something.
change.
Yeah, something everyone's happy to see, I'm sure. Good. Glad to hear it. This is not in this because it's a slightly older version of the PDF, but the final version of it, I'm claiming full responsibility for this. Raise is now spelled R-A-Z-E rather than R-A-I-S-E, like it should have been. It's important to me. Slight tweak
Really
to...
old style. There we go.
Slight tweak to secondaries. Any that previously said that a drop site had to be more than 24 away from you now has to be at least 24 away from you. The one that is exactly 24 away from your deployment zone is therefore at least. Therefore, ones along the centre line are valid for secondaries. Good. Nice to see. Aegis. Don't recall what changed here. I think just clarification of when you allocate the additional saves. Detector, you now gain a spike after using Detector. So at the end of your activation, just as you'll warm up a little bit. So if you're sat at the back with your telescope or with your lemurs, they will be slightly easier to hit. Obviously, you'll clear it on general quarters, but you'll therefore essentially always have 1 spike.
Yep. Yeah, if you're active scanning, then you're probably easier to spot yourself.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Do you want to take Escort? Do you remember what happened here, or should I take it?
Is it just one weapon system?
It's not 1 weapon system.
No, I don't remember what's changed here. You take it.
All right. Quite an elegant system, I think. So now, after an opponent has rolled all of they target a heavy or colossal ship, they roll all of their hits for all of the weapons targeting that ship. It's the targets for anything like caliber applies, etc. And then you have your pool of hits with save modifiers and 4 hits and whatnot. Cool. When you've done that, if you want, you can pick an escort group within 6 inches of that heavy or colossal ship and redirect some hits to the escort group. But the maximum number of hits, or sorry, the maximum damage you can reallocate is that group's starting health. So if I've got a single escort ship that has 5 health, and you hit me with 3 damage to attacks, for example, I could transfer 2 of them over to the escort, but 1 of them would still go into the capital ship. If that is a group of 2 escorts at 10 health, I could reallocate 10 damage to the group of escorts. And I can do this every time they're targeted. So, what does this mean? It means escorts are still great. I think I'll still always bring an escort along with my heavy ships, because being able to redirect some damage to them is very useful. But I can't necessarily redirect all of it. If my capital ship takes absolute hammering from an Amazon or something, I can't just go, nope, you hit the Vancouver instead, sorry. I can have some of it hit the Vancouver, which will obliterate it, but not all of it. Which, yeah, I think it's a nice change. I think it's an elegant way of doing it. It makes escorts still good. It doesn't mean they are as unpleasant to play against as they used to be. And one additional thing is that weapons with focused cannot be affected by the escort rule because they
That's
focus.
Cool. Yeah. So
there's actually an upside. Well, there's already an upside, I suppose, to focus. You could choose to focus down a damaged ship, but now, yeah, you can't dodge a focus weapon at all, even with an escort, which is nice. Yeah, good change. I think it was one of the most disliked rules, I think, for 2nd edition at launch. Lars, do you know what's changed with gate ships and motherships?
As far as I can tell, it's just a clearing up of the rules. There seems to be the gate ships, which is already here. They can't. They have max thruster damage controlled or something, but that was all. Except now it just turns your value to 0 instead of you can't launch. It just makes more sense.
Oh, I see the change there. The notes there saying the launch is measured from the gate ship. Oh no, that was already there. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just tightening up the wording, as he said.
Aren't there some Shaltari things where you've got a mothership or a gate ship that's a space station?
That's
so didn't they expand the definition to include stations?
That's it. Yes.
That might be it.
Because previously,
I guess if you're...
the Shaltari space station did not work because gate ship and mothership both referred to ship, and a space station is not a ship.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a clean up, really. Shields, this is potentially significant. Now, for your shields, last you as the Sheltari player, you call whether or not you're using your shields when I declare my attacks, not after I've rolled all my dice.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It makes
But
sense.
it's not changed anything other than that. It's not a
Yeah.
crazy change, really.
No, it just means you don't have all the information when you make the decision. You don't go, oh,
Yeah.
how many penetrator hits? Oh, 4. Oh, right, I'll shield. You go, I'm firing a weapon at you that has penetrator. Would you like to shield?
Yeah.
Which I think is more interesting. It's a bit more chaos, and yeah, that uncertainty means it's a more interesting decision rather than.
Makes more sense. You're raising shields as you see the bullets coming.
Yeah, you see the gun going like this.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, all right.
You also can't shield boarding actions.
Oh yes, that's a
Yeah.
change, which also makes sense. Cool. Crippling. This is a clarification. In bold there, you can only have one of each crippling effect. Before, there were entire essays written about whether it was from a token or from an effect, and whether an effect was a token, and no, you can have one of each crippling effect per ship except fire.
I can still set things very much on fire, though.
Yeah, you can burn the whole ship to the ground, yes, but you can't put 2 defenses offline stacks on it, or 2 weapons offline stacks on it, which is good. Interestingly, it means if you status something with, say, defenses offline, which will clear at the end of the round, you can't put another layer of real defenses offline on top of it that they have to repair, because they already have defenses offline, which is interesting interaction. I think that's the only real change, other than it's the defender that rolls the crippling result for being reduced to half health. So they're the person who's choosing to spend rerolls on it or choosing to set it to 1 damage and so on. Again, just to tidy up. Scald now actually says what it does. Previously, it didn't actually say what X did. It just said if you are hit by a Scald weapon, reduce your saves. Volley now clarifies basically they are separate weapons after you have assigned targets. Once you've assigned your final weapon. Big old chunk of FAQs, most of them fairly obvious. Like, what order you resolve rerolls in if players roll simultaneously. It's the player who has the initiative. They do so, or the active player does so first. Then other players in initiative order. You're off the table when your stem leaves the table, not your base. Most of this is all fairly obvious. Obviously, if you play Dropfleet, if you don't, not sure why you're watching this, if you play Dropfleet, read through this in full, because there will be some important changes here, but we're not going to go through everything. Again, reiterating that you can only have 1 crippling effect. If there is a planetary ring across the very center of the board, and you move so that you are, let's say it's 24 inches in, and you move 12 inches and then move 12 inches, what side of the ring are you on? You're on both sides of the ring. So you can be seen from both sides, which I guess is the best way to try and come to the conclusion of how wide an infinite point is, or infinitely thin line is. Is there anything else that noteworthy here? Do stop me if there's something you want to talk about, obviously. If you're firing a crippling weapon and you cripple something, the attacker decides, or they roll the crippling result. So if I hit something hard enough to cripple it with a crippling weapon, I'd roll 1 result, you'd roll the other. And we could spend our appropriate rerolls on them. Overcharge affects an entire volley weapon. And we're done. So, those are the changes to the core rules. Dan, what was the one you were mentioning at the start you said was a relatively minor one, but would have a big impact, if I understood correctly?
So I think the Weapons Free. It's not rewriting whole swathes of the rule book. It's changing 2 sentences for 2 very similar sentences. But the ripple effects out from there, where suddenly front narrow ships have that skill payoff much more. The ships with the launch suddenly become much more valuable if they've got a decent amount of guns compared to having to choose between launching and shooting.
I think you're going to see a lot less weapons free, which is kind of like your standard action. It felt like in most games, where now it might be less common that you're doing that.
Certainly, if
I don't know. As a Scourge player, I think I'm going to use it more.
Maybe.
I want to be able to launch with
Yeah.
my big ships that I've paid for decent
No,
launch values
yeah.
on. Getting another 3 Oculus shots, sure, why not? When we're at that point in the game,
Yeah.
and Scourge ships generally have pretty good fireworks as well, so works great for Scourge. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be simple. Everyone is going to change in this way. I think it's going to be really
Effective,
varied.
yeah.
But it's going to definitely make the game more interesting, I think.
Hmm.
Because yes, Scourge were quite, as I said, you're going to be using Weapons Free more on the whole, but well, previously if you're pointed at a debris field, Weapons Free doesn't matter. You turn a little bit and go that way instead. Whereas now it's a decision. What's more important, where you want to go, or do you want to fire more guns?
I'm used to silent running that doesn't let me turn. You need to point the ship in the right direction to start with.
Okay,
That hasn't
fair
changed
point.
with
All right.
Scourge.
Okay.
Don't point your ship towards things you don't want to fly into.
Fair point. All right. But yeah, I'd agree. Relatively minor change in terms of, I don't know, word count, but massive in terms of the rippling effects it can have across the whole game.
Yeah.